I'm Seth Johnson, music editor of Nuvo. I'm here with Chris Pitts, who is a local jazz pianist, and then Amy Crook, who is a local jazz advocate. I would like to talk to both of you a little bit about your backgrounds with jazz and kind of why jazz is such a passion of yours. So can you kind of tell me a little bit about like how jazz became a part of your life and why it's continued to be a part of your life up to now?
Yeah, so that's a good question. It kind of came out of nowhere, I guess. I started very young listening to classical like that. Didn't really play. Then I kind of grew up on like a hip-hop R&B oldies diet, like Earth, Wind and Fire, Stevie Wonder.
Yeah.
And then I've always wanted to play piano, and I heard this, it was on a TV show or something. It was like a blues type of piano thing, and I was like, man, I want to play like that. And I got a piano when I was like 17 or 18. I was in my last year of high school, and I couldn't get up. So it was like 8 hours a day, and then eventually I got into, I got a lesson for a little bit during a summer, and he introduced me into like the blues and like kind of introduced me to like Chick Corea, and then from Chick Corea I found the monk, Thelonious Monk, and just kind of like kept diving in deeper and deeper. And then I went to college in Georgia, Mercer University. So then I started playing with the jazz band there, jazz program, big band, and just never looked back. It's kind of like, it's more like, it's really compulsive. It's something I really enjoy, but I guess the connectedness to like the roots, like so like real American music and like the passion of using things that happen in the moment to tell the story. So it kind of, I love that part about it.
Cool.
Yeah, so for myself, I actually worked for Nuvo a long time ago, and the Jazz Kitchen was a client of mine selling advertising. When I went to do, well, I think it was in between jobs. I hadn't committed to do freelance work yet, but the Jazz Kitchen ended up being one of my clients. I worked with them, Crackers Comedy Club, another client from the kitchen, just small business owners that knew that having marketing support was important, but they couldn't afford to hire someone full time. So with that was right when David Ali, the owner of the Jazz Kitchen, and Rob Dixon, a saxophonist in town, took over Indie Jazz Fest. I remember there being some kind of panel discussions, or kind of, not panel discussions, but kind of meet and greets throughout the community to kind of figure out the future of the festival. So while I have the Jazz Kitchen's client at that time working on that stuff, I was also working with People for Urban Progress. At that time, People for Urban Progress was so kind of new, hip, that kind of had, I would say, had my frontal lobe of attention. I left Indianapolis several years ago, went to Los Angeles for a couple years, Austin, Texas for a year. When I returned to Indianapolis, I was attracted, saw David Ali again, and he said, hey, I could use some help with some marketing, so I worked with the Jazz Kitchen again. Kind of where I was at that time with my career, and okay, if I'm gonna work with the Jazz Kitchen, I know that I wouldn't have a job, without musicians. So I just re-immersed myself as I was returning to Indianapolis on the music scene, building stronger relationships with jazz musicians, and I mean, through spending time with musicians, just getting a better feel for their wants, needs, how we can support them in the city, what's working, what's not working, and kind of getting involved. So about this time last year, Chris Pitts is one of the musicians I was spending time with, and there's a couple other people in the scene. We realized that nobody was really doing anything for Jazz Appreciation Month. So we looked at this from a musician standpoint as an opportunity to kind of shine a light and try to take ownership and celebrate Jazz Appreciation Month and get some more voices at the table versus kind of the infrastructure that already exists in the city was kind of one collective voice. So musicians' projects contribute to it. It is and will move and help connect dots to make some of these ideas happen.
I just wanted to be like a focal point because the things are happening here in Indy. But we just need like a focal point, and that's more grassroots oriented for people to like stop and like, okay, this is where I start, and I can branch out.
Talk to me a little bit then too about what Jam Indie is. Explain what it is to me, and kind of also how it's like more than just an indie thing as well.
I guess it started out like what Amy was talking about. Like, we just kind of like surveying and seeing what was out there, and there was no real, we didn't feel like it was enough focus from a musician development perspective about the Jazz Appreciation Month in Indy, so we just came up with the hashtags. Amy got this beautiful like logo design, and we kind of set up a Facebook group. It's like, okay, hey, what are you guys doing? You know, so we put together like a list of events and things that are happening, calendar, and then just kind of like invited people and tried to just spread the word. And so we started out shooting a video in the city market, Indianapolis City Market. And so that was with our friend Akash Robert Krishnandan. And we kind of just asked people, so what is jazz? You know, and like people gave their candid remarks in the city, and we kind of edited the footage, and I was like the promo was like, hey, Jazz Appreciation Month is here, and
it's something that everybody can participate in. So like the events we like to celebrate too. There's all ages events at the library, or you know, music venues that are all ages. You know, that you can kind of bring the kids to. So kind of addressing some of those things. And I think when I was kind of like diving into the jazz space in Indianapolis, jazz is such a small genre when you're looking at music as a whole. But as I was getting to know people in the city, I didn't realize how many different pockets of the jazz community there were. There's different like elements and subgenres of jazz, and so you know, thought, hey, and we're still working to this day to invite more people from all these communities through. You know, folks from Indiana Avenue, you know, participating in, you know, this celebration. Folks that are, you know, kind of visiting Indiana through our music schools, get them involved, give them a reason to you know, learn Indianapolis' history and maybe stay here, contribute, or at least swing through and support the scene as they grow through their careers.
I guess before we dive into kind of Indianapolis jazz history, I also would like, just for someone who doesn't really know that much about local jazz, can you kind of speak to how much jazz is there in Indy right now, and how can people find it?
I'd say there's a fair amount. I think you can get connected with the music scene any day of the week now. You know, we can like highlight the specific, you know, what musicians would call like the hangs, or like the jam sessions, where like, you know, you really kind of work up your chops and like develop rapport with other musicians in the city. But what do you want to get into specifics? You want like specific days of the week? I can tell you my favorite.
Favorite places or favorite.
And moving here from Georgia, like I started out, you know, going to the actually first person I ever met was Jared Thompson, he was playing the Chatterbox Jazz Club, historic jazz club, and playing some really cool music, and I was like, oh man, this is the spot. And I was like, I really love that sound. And then I eventually ventured on to like the Jazz Kitchen Monday night jam session that still happens. I met Clifford Ratcliffe there, and like he's Indiana history right there, Indianapolis history. And so like I learned a lot from him, and I think a lot of people have. And then, you know, Chatterbox, from there I went on to see like the Tucker Brothers on Wednesday nights at the Chatterbox. I met them at another gig, and just they have a unique, great sound too. So I think it's like every day. I think the main two spots though, like Jazz Kitchen and Chatterbox right now. But you know, I started trying to activate an older space, McGowan Hall, like at First Friday after parties, and so I've been working with that, trying to integrate music with the arts scene kind of a little bit. And then Tuesday nights, the Mousetrap. You have Rob Dixon, who was like, you know, the mayor. Amazing band, amazing sound, original music, and definitely, I think that his sound, his music, definitely makes me think of Indy for sure. I don't know if we're gonna get into more specific.
Yeah, and I think to backtrack too with just some of Indianapolis's history, I still, and again, kind of on this journey in the last year, I'm surprised with how many people I meet with, both from here or new to here, that had not heard of Indiana Avenue. So because a lot of it was kind of demolished and IPY came up and all this change, we don't have enough physical cues to ask questions. Every now and then, we're grateful that we've got a mural, you know, along Indiana Avenue. So at least, you know, hey, but you might have to walk up close to read the plaque on the wall to really get its significance. So Indiana Avenue was, you know, one of the music capitals of the nation back in the 30s through the 60s. Cats like, and again, I also get surprised when I mention some jazz cats to people that are visiting, or hey, you know, I know that through the Music Cities initiative, I know that you're really involved with stuff like Shane, I'd be like, hey, of course he knows who Wes Montgomery is, J.J. Johnson, Freddie Hubbard, but I was like, people here don't even know. Like, we're struggling to get that message out, that we had some really fascinating cats that developed their craft here in Indianapolis. And it was a place where touring musicians wanted to stop and play. It was rumored to be the spot that you had to stop and play. So this idea that, you know, the city as a whole, talking about music culture, well, we had it before. It's not something that, you know, we had it, and it was, there were elements that were lost for sure, and I definitely don't want to speak for anybody that experienced living on Indiana Avenue, but I feel like that's a place to start, because we still have some cats that are still alive with us, still playing. Let's celebrate that. Let's bridge the gap. It's not just new people coming in because music's a hot economic development topic. Like, let's do it right. We're starting now, you know, let's do it right, and one conversation at a time, and make sure that all the cats are at the table.
And you, I mean, and kind of talking about like the Chatterbox and Jazz Kitchen too, like, how do you feel that Indianapolis today is still carrying on that legacy of Indiana Avenue? Like, is that something that's still happening, and is it something that you still see?
Yeah, actually, I want to mention a panel discussion that we did last year, Jazz 101, at the Jazz Kitchen with Kyle Long and Culture Manifesto. What sticks with me is a conversation with Freddie Mendoza. He's a trombone player that moved here from Austin, Texas. He teaches, I believe, at Ball State. One of the things that I hadn't really put together, and I'm sure Chris can speak to this as well, as far as when you come to Indianapolis or any city that you're at, there's going to be a book of standards that are typically played there. So all of a sudden, I'm kind of riddling this, like, hey, generation to generation, you know, hey, plus, you know, is part of our book what was played on Indiana Avenue, just through mentorship. You know, I thought that was pretty kind of interesting and riddle to think, you know, figure out that musical family tree, if you will, you know, for the jazz, you know, path. What do you think?
That's true. Yeah, there's definitely a group of tunes, and I think that happens anywhere. There's like a culture of musicians. They have these tunes that they work on. I mean, they definitely learned some like West tunes and some Freddie tunes that I wasn't playing that much. And then it's hard for me to tell, because I don't, you know, specifically know, like, was this on purpose, or it's like just because of the Indiana Avenue history and like their connection to the city. But I mean, I definitely learned some Indiana Avenue great tunes, like standards and stuff like that from being here.
It's musicians' way of storytelling, keeping those tunes alive, you know, without having to have heavy conversations all the time.
Yeah, exactly, and that's the beauty of it, you know. It's connected. We're connected through the music.
And we didn't really discuss this much yet, but you talked about like going to the Chatterbox and hearing Jared Thompson. Like, talk to me a little bit about how you personally got plugged into the local jazz scene in terms of playing wise, and was it difficult at all for you to navigate that?
Difficult is not the, I don't think, the word to describe. For me personally, you know, I came in through the jam session scene and just playing, you know, with people and meeting people, and eventually, you know, I got a call for a gig, or like I started working more and more with certain musicians, and then we developed like a rapport. And I feel like personally that the music scene here is really open as far as like inviting, you know. You have the history of like Clifford, you know, always like, go get your horn. He's always inviting you on the stage. And I think that kind of describes like the culture of Indianapolis music, especially for seasoned players, letting in less seasoned players and developing their talent, developing their skills. I feel like I've grown so much since I've been here, just being able to play with some of the talented people that I mentioned earlier, and even more that I didn't mention, because there's a ton of people. I don't want to like miss out on people. It could go on for days. But, I mean, those are the people that were like I spent the most time with, so there's definitely other perspectives.
I mean, I've noticed that so much with like Rob at Chatterbox or Tucker Brothers at Chatterbox is like bringing up people that I mean, I go to jazz a lot too, and there are people that they bring up that I've never seen before. And
For sure.
So then now branching into Jazz Appreciation Month, kind of tell me a little bit about why Jazz Appreciation Month is so important to Indianapolis, and then kind of the ways that people can get involved with jazz this month especially.
So when I was introduced to the idea that, hey, Jazz Appreciation Month is a thing, I uncovered that through the Smithsonian's like National Museum for American History, something like that. I might have butchered it. So they established that in 2001 as just an avenue to celebrate America's music. You know, I love, there's this quote from Esperanza Spalding, or, you know, maybe some people that I've seen before, like, hey, Europeans brought us classical music, jazz music was created here, you know? So this was an opportunity to kind of celebrate that. The Smithsonian site has a list of resources that's tremendously deep. I mean, so teachers out there, whether of all, you know, age students, there's going to be some resources on there for free that you can use. There's even radio spots with some jazz musicians, you know, talking about jazz and educating people that people use on radio. So it created a kind of a menu of resources that the nation can use to celebrate. I can't remember the year, but then we also have International Jazz Day, which is an initiative I know Herbie Hancock is really involved in. That takes place every April 30th. So both of these kind of events. The City Market last year was going to do something with International Jazz Day, so we just kind of like caught on with that. Now we partner with them to celebrate. But yeah, so as far as Indianapolis, just knowing the rich history that was here, it's like, hey, we can create a platform, and I'll be, to be quite frank, it's Black music, and this is an opportunity to promote Black artists in town outside the month of February. Because that's another conversation that happens every February 28th, that everybody's like, I wonder how we can hire Black artists throughout the year. Hey, here's an opportunity. And so my personal interest in getting involved is I'd be interested in doubling the amount of gigs that musicians that I work with get, and increasing the wage that they're actually getting paid. So there's a lot of talent here. If we can create some more music-minded opportunities for everybody to make some income pursuing their craft.
I think it's important. That Indianapolis holds onto its history, and that's not forgetting, because the musicians here are strong, and they come from a strong lineage. Like, I was influenced by Indianapolis before I even knew about the Indianapolis scene, really. Because like my professor in college would play tapes, and he was like, who's that artist? Like, who's playing on this record? And like, one of the ones was his favorite is J.J. Johnson. Didn't even know. J.J. Johnson, you know, recorded like original composition by Monk before Monk did with Coleman Hawkins, I Mean You, and that's commonly played here today. So like J.J. Johnson, like all those guys, you know, until I got here, I didn't even notice, and then I realized, like, you know, we really need to get the word out about that heritage that, you know, Indianapolis jazz has developed.
Cool. Do you have just kind of to run through things that people can go to this month? Maybe talk to me a little bit about like a couple that you personally are excited about, maybe?
And I think that this will air after an event this week. But working with the City Market, they do Art at the Market on First Fridays, and they started a Legacy Makers series. So they've chosen Indianapolis Jazz to bookend the month of Jazz Appreciation Month. So what will be passed, I believe, when listeners are listening, you know, we have people like Vicki Daniel, who was had sung and grew up along Indiana Avenue, moderating conversations with Steve Weekly, a jazz guitarist. George Ben, we know him mostly for he books entertainment at indie parks. He's also in a band called Merging Traffic. Then we've got Jared Thompson of Premium Blend that will kind of represent, you know, because one of the new cats, and we've also got Kathy Morris, an electric violinist, that will be participating. So we're going to make it a thing. We're going to have David Williams, the author of Indianapolis Jazz, there selling books and signing them and things like that. It's such a powerful book. I think that anybody that's interested in the, you know, the Indie Music Strategy Initiative, having this book on your bookshelf to reference from time to time, I think would be a really powerful asset to, you know, make sure we string our history through our present day discussions. Regarding other events around town, I'll just skim through this. We've got some nationally recognized cats coming through. Stephon Harris, a vibraphonist, will be performing at Butler for a free all ages event. Let's see, also, I'll actually end with the American Pianist Association. We got the Jazz Kitchen is celebrating their 25th anniversary. We've got a tribute for Freddie Hubbard, a trumpeter. His tribute's going to be at the Jazz Kitchen on Monday, April 8th. His birthday is April 7th, so it kind of correlates with kind of keeping his memory and celebrate his works.
Excited about that, because my birthday's on the 9th.
Oh, let's see, what else do we have? You know what? I'll mention the American Pianist Association because I think a lot of your listeners might not know that we've got this nationally recognized organization based here in Indianapolis, and every 4 years they host a jazz competition. I believe it's every 2 years they do a classical. So we are in competition season right now. It started last, I want to say August or September, and it wraps up the first weekend of Jazz Appreciation Month this weekend. There's basically 5 finalists that are chosen to compete for the largest jazz prize that there is for that genre. It includes, record support and, a new piano, being, sexy things like that. But it's really cool to know that this is taking place here. Chris and I have been involved in meeting, these cats that are traveling here to perform, learning about their experiences and how we can provide a better experience when people are coming to Indianapolis for events like this.
Yeah, it's probably I'm most excited about that. To see like these guys come in, they're great musicians, good people.
Yeah,
I'm excited to see them that performance competition take place.
Yeah, and for you specifically, where are places where people can hear you play this month?
This month I've got a lot going on. I'm gonna be so my next thing I'm doing this first Friday, which is April the 5th. April the 5th at McGowan Hall. Yeah. I'm doing a Thelonious Monk tribute for Jazz Appreciation Month. I'm gonna have Kent Hickey, who's graduating from Butler, Isaac Beaumont on bass, and Brian Yard. And then I'll play with Clint Breeze and the Groove at Healer, and
that's April 13th.
And April 13th, and I'll be with them at the Jazz Kitchen on the 27th.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, I'm getting these dates. I know the calendar and stuff is on the hashtag Jam Indie Facebook group.
Yeah.
And I'll be also at Healer. They're starting a new jazz jam session, so I'll be with Pat Petrus and Isaac Beaumont, and I'll be doing a lot of stuff, man. Yeah. I've gotta check out my own calendar to remember everything.
And I think this might be a good time to rattle off the jams that hangs throughout the week. So for anybody that's interested in getting a jam, this is the time to get your pen and paper out, or bookmark it. Come back to us.
This is where you get in. And, this is where you get in and learn.
Yeah.
So Chris mentioned Chatterbox, the Jazz Kitchen. We've also got folks that are doing things at Cool Yard Coffee.
Yes.
So that's another all ages spot. Healer, so they're starting a new spot.
That's April 18th, I believe.
April 18th.
This month.
The Healer one.
This month, yeah.
Is this the first installment of that?
I'm not sure if it's the first installment, but it might be.
About it. Okay. Yeah.
But
that's cool.
They're wanting to, which is another exciting place. Another place to have music, and it's all ages.
Yeah.
And
Chili Water, their new location. They're gonna launch a jazz night as well. I think it's April 11th.
Okay.
Let's see, Square Cat Vinyl, they have an all ages jazz jam. And I was just talking to Mike Angel, the owner there, and he said it's been going so well, they're thinking about doing it 2 nights.
Oh, wow.
So it's kind of like, hey, there's definitely a lot of energy, there's a lot of musicians that are interested in here. We've got, folks from Bloomington and Muncie coming down to gig here in Indianapolis, so it's a really exciting time to kind of get involved and learn.
I think it's like, we know like things as we're connected to certain people, but I think the calendar is really a good place to check it out, so we're not missing any, because like there's so much going on this month. And so get the specific dates.
Yeah, and the calendar we're referring to on Facebook, the group hashtag Jam Indie, hashtag Jam Indie, is kind of our central hub. So musicians will drop their flyers for events they've got. There's also a not super sexy PDF, but it's got a list of all the events that you need. But we felt it was important to get the word out there versus getting the word out there versus focusing on how it looks.
For sure.
And that's a group we encourage you, like, musicians are there, put your playlists up, comment, talk about like your experiences and things like that. Engage, you can engage in the scene that way.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, I think that's all I have for you guys. But
cool.
Oh yeah.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Yeah.